Hi, my name's Whitney. I'm 28 years old from Cranberry, New Jersey, and I'm an educational paraprofessional for students with intellectual and mental health disabilities.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Derove. I'm 25 years old. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm currently the Assistant Clinical Coordinator for an Adult Autism Day Program.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lenz. I live in Toms River, New Jersey, and I am a Quality Support Specialist for a provider agency for adults with intellectual disabilities and mental illness.
For our supporting literature, I took two studies. The effects of token economy on the exercise behavior of individuals with Down syndrome by Freddie Bennett, Pat Einsman, Ron French, Hester Henderson, and Barry Schultz. And we chose this study to compare to ours just because it had a small population, just like us. There's only 3 of us in our group, but they conducted a study about the cardiorespiratory fitness of 3 females with Down syndrome. The participants were similar to us in age, so 24 to 26, and we're ages 25 to 36, except their exercise in this case was cycling using a pedaling ergometer. In the study, each participant cycled for 15 minutes during each weekday, just as we walked each day. The study utilized a token economy system where the participants were given tokens based on the certain numbers of revolution of the bikes or the number of times the wheels circulated. The study concluded that the token economy was able to increase the level of exercise being completed by its participants, which was interesting just because ours worked the same way. We received tokens for each lap we walked, just as they received tokens per cycling. So we thought it was really similar, and then we thought the finding was really interesting. The other study we looked into to compare to ours was increasing physical activity in individuals with autism by Terry Todd and Greg Reed. In this study, the author wanted to see if they could increase physical activity in the form of snowshoeing, jogging, or walking. And this study also had a small amount of participants, so they also only had 3 male secondary students who had an autism spectrum diagnosis and were attending a school for students with intellectual disabilities. But unlike our study, it was divided into 6 phases, and in each phase they varied the amount of edible reinforcers to see if that had any effect on the amount of physical activity that was conducted by each participant. And the results found that even when the amount of edible reinforcement decreased, that the distance snowshoed or the distance walked or jogged over 30-minute sessions still increased, and we found that really interesting.
I'm going to go over our original study. The title of the original study was Using Token Reinforcement to Increase Walking for Adults with Intellectual Disabilities. Studies showed that physical activity can contribute to serious health problems such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and hypertension. Only 1 in 5 adults meet the physical activity guidelines. That is why the individuals who conducted the original study believed that increasing physical activity in individuals with intellectual disabilities was an important behavior to target and to increase. Very few studies prove that token reinforcement can increase physical activity in adults with intellectual disabilities. The purpose of the study was to find effective token reinforcement to increase the walking distances of adults with intellectual disabilities that attended their day program. The original study involved 5 men ages 34 to 67 that had been diagnosed with mild to moderate intellectual disabilities. Prior to completing this study, the participants completed a physical activity readiness questionnaire. The sessions were held between 9 and 10 a.m. on weekdays, and cones were used to mark 50 meters, which was defined as 1 lap. And for every lap that the participants completed, they earned 1 token that was deposited into their token bag. The participants were also given verbal praise for participating by the researchers and the staff. Some of the participants spent their tokens right after the sessions on their positive reinforcements, while others chose to save their tokens. During the baseline, the participants completed a multiple stimulus without replacement preference assessment to identify the hierarchy of the items preferred. The token exchange rate for the items was based on the individual's laps walked during the baseline. The AB reversal design was used to evaluate the effectiveness of the reinforcements. This study was conducted over 40 sessions, and the results showed that the token reinforcement program was effective and increased the physical activity in adults that have intellectual disabilities. The researchers and staff also felt that the intervention was easy to implement. On the last day of the study, the participants completed a social vitality questionnaire, and they also agreed that the reinforcements did motivate them to walk more. The purpose of us completing the study was to evaluate the effectiveness of token reinforcement using an AB-AB reversal design for increasing the walking distance of young adults. We were the 3 participants, and we earned 1 token for every 50-meter laps that we walked. The tokens were exchanged for reinforcements that we chose and during our preference assessment.
I'm going to talk about the methods. The participants were 3 female college students, aged 25 to 36. The materials were the physical activity readiness questionnaire, cell phones, Runkeeper application, notebook, pens and pencils, paper tokens, a token exchange rate board, and a token bag. We each had different reinforcements that we identified with the preference assessment. We had pineapple soda, Oreos, Twizzlers, a Chipotle gift card, or strawberry smoothie. I had diet soda, fun-size candy, Wawa gift card, coffee mug, or a Dunkin' gift card. And Elizabeth had Starbucks gift card, Flamin' Hot Fries, bath bomb, Zebra cake, or an Ulta gift card. We defined the behavior as walking as the number of 50-meter laps walked in 1 hour. A lap is defined as walking 50 meters of distance. The data collection system that we used was frequency, so 50 meters equals 1 lap, and laps were tracked on the participant's Runkeeper application. For inter-observer agreement, each participant sent a screenshot of their total distance walked with the Runkeeper application to another member of the group, and it was compared to the participant's data for inter-observer agreement percentages. Each participant recorded the number of laps they completed per session on the Google document at every session. Prior to the baseline section, each participant completed the Part Q, provided written consent, and confirmed that we would participate vocally. In the baseline section, each participant downloaded the Runkeeper app on their phone, walked for 1-hour sessions during weekdays Monday through Friday, completed their sessions at the gym, park, in the neighborhood, or at home, or on a treadmill. And for the first 6 sessions, no reinforcer was delivered for walking, and each participant walked as little or as much as they would like to. We were allowed to take breaks anytime during a session, and the app recorded the distance walked during sessions. Each participant was required to divide the distance they walked into 50-meter increments, because 50 meters equals 1 lap, and report the total number of laps walked during all sessions into the group Google Docs on the data collection sheet. No praise or tokens were awarded during baseline. For preference assessment, participants were interviewed on possible reinforcement items. Each participant self-reported 5 or more items they would like to earn by walking. A multiple stimulus without replacement preference assessment was conducted using the reinforcements identified, and the interview to determine the hierarchy of preference for the items. Token exchange rate board was created with prices and reinforcements. Each item was valued at a certain number of tokens. Baseline data determined how much the item would be valued at to make sure the participants had an equal opportunity to earn. The value of the reinforcers were based on the cost of the item, and the exchange value, how many laps for earning each reinforcer, was calculated based on baseline data to ensure each participant had the same ability to earn rewards based on ability and improvement. 1 lap equals 1 token. intervention, each participant would walk weekdays Monday through Friday for 1 hour. Participants could complete their session at a gym, park, in the neighborhood, or at home on a treadmill. After walking, participants tallied the number of laps. Every 50 meters the participants walked, they earned a paper token placed in the token bag. The participants would earn X amount of tokens per lap completed. So, for example, 20 laps would equal 20 tokens. The number of tokens participants earned during a session was recorded onto the group Google document. Participants viewed the choices they could purchase with their tokens on the token exchange board, and then chose reinforcers to purchase with any tokens, or could choose to save up their tokens for a higher reinforcer or higher valued reinforcer. Participants agreed to keep their reinforcers on hand in the car, in the gym locker, etc., so that reinforcement could be immediate upon completion of walking, and verbal praise during sessions was delivered via text message or video chat. Treatment fidelity. Participants completed the treatment fidelity form at the end of each session and recorded a yes if the component was implemented and no if it was not. Our integrity checklist included tracked meters walked using the Runkeeper application. The number of laps walked was recorded in the participant's Google document at the end of the session. Paper tokens were awarded for every lap completed. The number of tokens earned per session was recorded in the Google document in the end of the session. Provided verbal praise to participants during sessions. Reinforcements were purchased with tokens after completing the goal, and the behavior data was sent to other participants. A social validity survey after the baseline and intervention stages was also completed to assess our opinions on the walking program. Now we're all going to talk about our results.
Okay, I'm going to show you my graph of my results. Okay, my results did increase during the intervention phase compared to my baseline phase. My first baseline average was 19.16 laps with a range of 12 to 42 laps per session. Compared to my last intervention, my average was 50 laps with a range of walking 35 to 60 laps during each session. The reinforcements didn't really motivate me to walk more. I felt motivated to walk in order to successfully complete the project and to also develop a better habit of having consistent exercise.
So for mine, my results were pretty consistent up until going to the last token economy. But I think part of that has to do with during my baseline I was sick, so I really wasn't motivated to walk. I got up to make sure I was moving more for the sake of, I know that when you're sick that it makes you feel a little bit better if you're up and moving, but not because I wanted to necessarily walk. So my baseline average was 13.66 laps compared to my intervention 2 average of 22 laps. So there was definitely an increase, but it was nothing super significant. And I think during our last week of collecting data, my school schedule had finally kind of settled a little bit, so I had more time to walk, whereas when we first started the project, we were in the middle of the semester, so it wasn't always as easy.
my data was pretty sporadic. I just walked when I have time. You know, I had 2 classes, jobs, and kids, so it was just very sporadic. And even though it did show that slight increase from baseline to intervention, it was really just because of external factors. So I was all over the place. Some days I didn't walk at all. Some days I just did a couple of laps because I was still at work. So it just varied. And even though there's that slight increase, it really wasn't because of the reinforcers. It was just coincidental. Now we're going to talk about the conclusion. So the results of the study varied. Elizabeth's data showed a slight increase from baseline to intervention, about a 5-lap increase. Whitney increased by approximately 20 laps during intervention, and I increased by about 11 laps during intervention. And even though the data suggested that there was an increase in walking during intervention, there's really not enough of an increase to prove a functional relationship. In addition, all the members of the group self-reported that the reinforcers did not act as motivation to walk. Instead, the students walked as part of the project and the effect it might have on their grades. In addition, there were other variables present for the students that showed sporadic results, including the amount of time available to walk and the amount of personal time variations related to how much time was left for each student after studies and working 1 or 2 jobs depending on the student. And while the token economy might have been effective in the original study on adults with disabilities who have limited access to reinforcers and less access to funds, there were too many other motivating factors to determine whether the intervention was effective for the college students. Those other variables, coupled with the students' self-reporting of not being motivated by the reinforcers, suggest that there was not a functional relationship between the intervention and the increase in walking.
So as far as limitations, one of the biggest thing was schedules. We chose for our study to walk between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 p.m., but because that was the most consistent for the 3 of us, just because we all work different hours, my schedule is currently 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., so by 7 o'clock I am able to do homework and get things done, so that leaves that window open for me. But I know with Jessica and Whitney that isn't the case. Sometimes they'd be still at work during that block of time. So that definitely was a limitation. And also we're all in school, so it depended on how much homework we had. There were some days where all of our classes got a little bit lighter, or we had spring break, obviously, where we didn't have as much schoolwork to do. So we had more time to walk. So that definitely played a big role, and just with tests and everything. The 7 to 8 o'clock hour is also when I typically make dinner. So for me, that happened to be a time where I was already up and moving, or if I was playing volleyball that night, then I was already up and moving by coincidence. So as Jessica stated, the reinforcers didn't really play their role, and it's also one of those things where I have access to the Starbucks card, so if I want Starbucks, I'm not going to wait to walk, I'm just going to buy the Starbucks that I want. So the reinforcements definitely didn't hold a good enough value for all of us to motivate us. And then even, we all live on the East Coast, so it's cold. It's the second week in April, and it's snowing right now in Cleveland. So that also played a role. And with daylight savings, it's just started to be light enough outside during that time where I would maybe feel comfortable walking outside. So that played a lot of the role. Maybe if we would have done this during summer term, where it's warmer out and it's lighter longer, I would have been a little bit more motivated because I could do it outside. But obviously that was not the case for us. So, and just obviously not being there physically together to do the project. I know I'm personally more competitive. I have done a similar work challenge where I'm walking with my coworkers, and because I physically see my other coworkers up and moving, I'm more motivated to be up and moving with them. But obviously when I know Whitney and Jessica are moving and up, but I physically can't see them, so it's different. Like getting a text saying, "Hey, I'm walking, are you?" It's a little bit different than actually seeing them and being able to just walk with them, so I'm not walking around my house by myself or walking on the treadmill by myself. So that definitely played a role. And it's just hard to hold each other accountable. I could be laying on my couch being "Oh yeah, guys, I'm moving," but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm I am actually moving, or I'm moving anywhere near like as much or as little as they are. So overall, we all kind of came to the conclusion that our reinforcers just didn't play the role that we thought they would, just because we are adults, we have access to our reinforcement. We do have access to our reinforcers, so maybe if that wasn't the case, where we were all in closer proximity, so like Whitney really was in charge of giving me my reinforcements, I think that definitely maybe would have held the reinforcer to a higher level where I would have been more motivated. So that concludes our presentation. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and feel free to have any questions for us. Thank you.